Hey man, I know I look a hot mess right now, but we got to talk about this NBA trade deadline. And I'm not elite enough as a basketball content creator yet to have covered all of this stuff as it was happening with individual videos. Like a lot of I can't even call people my peers, but like some of the other creators. Okay, but I did want to at least make sure that I covered this and talked about this in the video because I got a lot of thoughts. A lot of crazy trades happened. There's a lot that I want to talk about and things I want to tell you guys about. I mean, you already know, but like this deadline, at least to me, it was probably the craziest of all time. And it's ironic and funny because I think most people thought that this deadline wasn't going to be nothing special. We weren't really going to see a lot of movement. It wasn't going to be nothing. Luka got traded and all hell broke loose after that. All right. So as we just said, right, Luka Doncic got traded to the Lakers in exchange for Anthony Davis, as well as like with Maxi Kleber and then Markieff Morris and then Max Christie, which I miss him already. Mavs fans, treat him well, bro. I didn't see y'all showing him mad love. He had a great first game with the Mavs. I think he was 100% from the floor, hit like 4 threes, 15 points, a few boards, a few assists, and repeated a very similar stat line in the next game. He didn't shoot as well, but it was like 6 of 13, which is still more than great. And he played phenomenal defense against the Celtics. I know this ain't really about Max Christie and the Mavericks, but like I just really had like a lot of appreciation for that kid, and I just thought he was going to be really good for us, and he became like a really solid rotational piece, and I'm going to miss him, but he's already looking amazing over there in Dallas, and I see Mavs fans have taken quite the liking to him, so I'm going to be rooting for him always, and I hope y'all treat him well. But anyway, Luka Doncic to the Lakers, Anthony Davis to the Mavs, insane. That was then followed up by De'Aaron Fox being traded to the San Antonio Spurs, Zach LaVine going to the Bulls, among other things. Matter of fact, we can go ahead and pull up Twitter real quick, and we can jump on over to the monitor. I got Shams pulled up here. So we had this trade right here. Breaking: Sacramento is finalizing a trade to send De'Aaron Fox to the San Antonio Spurs in a multi-team trade that moves Chicago Bulls' Zach LaVine to the Kings. Sources tell ESPN. This obviously broke a few days ago. And yeah, the full details of the trade were De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin go to the Spurs. The Kings get Zach LaVine, Sidy Cissoko, 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, and then the Bulls get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 pick for San Antonio, or via San Antonio. Keep it a stack. I hated this trade. For the Kings and for the Bulls, I think the Spurs, they fleeced. I give the Spurs an A+ for this trade. The Kings get a D+, and the Bulls get an F. And here's why, okay? So the Kings in return get Zach LaVine, which I hate this for Zach LaVine. So we're just turning Sacramento into basically the West Coast version of the Bulls because we got Zach over there and now we got DeMar over there. They're together. They just were playing together in Chicago. I'm sure that I'm sure they cool. I'm sure they like being teammates again, but like you just went from a mediocre team to a mediocre team. Like the Bulls were fighting for the playing spot and the Kings are fighting for a playing spot. Like I really want to see a player like Zach LaVine, who I think is elite, go play on a contending team somewhere where he can actually contribute and play meaningful basketball. I think Zach LaVine is a really underrated and underappreciated player at this point in his career. I think because he's been in Chicago where they weren't really playing for much and weren't really competing at a high level, he's become like underappreciated, even though he's still what I would consider a super high level player. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to label him as like no superstar or anything like that. I'm trying to reserve that for the top of the top of the top. But I think Zach LaVine is probably like a top 20 to 25-ish player in the league. You know what I'm saying? At least in my opinion, y'all might disagree with that, but that would just go to show, based on how strong you disagree, how underrated I think he's become at this point. So him going to the Kings, where they have like no real direction right now, it's just the new Bulls. Like Malik Monk, I guess that's more athletic Kobe White. You know what I mean? Sabonis is obviously better than Vucevic, but it's just like, and then Keegan Murray is, I mean, this season he not really that much better than Patrick Williams. No, well, Patrick Williams is pretty. They've both been bad. This is Keegan Murray's worst year so far in his career. And as somebody who has him on my fantasy team, I would know. I actually like Keegan Murray quite a lot. Thought he was a great player, and I think this will just be a down year and he'll bounce back eventually. But it ain't been pretty. But the Kings, like, you get Zach LaVine's. Cool, that's dope. He's a great player, but it's not going to elevate y'all beyond, especially with losing De'Aaron Fox. Sidy Cissoko, 3 first-round picks. The Charlotte pick is protected. That's going to stay with them. 2027 San Antonio pick. Well, they've got Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox. That pick ain't going to be worth shit. And then you have the 2031 Minnesota pick. So it's essentially only one real pick, because that 2027 San Antonio pick is not going to be worth nothing unless there's like something major that happens that ruins things in San Antonio. Because De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama, they already look great in their debut. You know what I'm saying? Together, I think they both dropped like 24 points and they had the W. It's going to be a great fit. I expect them to be very good in the future moving forward. Victor Wembanyama is only going to get better. De'Aaron Fox is already stamped. And then, like I said, Charlotte is bad. They're keeping that pick. It's not, you know what I'm saying? That's just going to turn into 2 seconds or whatever. And then the second round picks themselves, generally speaking, obviously, we all know most second round picks don't pan out. There are some hits here or there. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is one of the extreme outlier examples where he's the best player in the world and he was a second round pick, but that don't normally happen. So it's just like they didn't really get a whole lot for their franchise player and one of the best players in the history of their organization in De'Aaron Fox. The return that they got, how did you not get Stephon Castle or a Devin Vassell or a Keldon Johnson, you know what I'm saying, and more picks? Like, San Antonio has so many assets, and frankly, they fleeced. They got away with murder by being able to keep all their young players. The majority of their picks, they gave up next to nothing and got De'Aaron Fox, an all NBA caliber player, an all-star caliber player, like a top point guard. He's not like top 3, but De'Aaron Fox is damn good. You know what I mean? And it's just gonna be immediately. We've already seen it. They look good. And as a matter of fact, the Spurs play again today. They play against Charlotte. And I'm sure they're gonna stomp them out because Charlotte is really bad, and they made a bunch of moves that don't make sense to me, and LaMelo's hurt and Brandon Miller is hurt, and it's just, I don't really understand what's going on there. Shout out to them. No, I appreciate you because they helped my team get a little bit better, but regardless. And then for the Bulls, you get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, because the Bulls needed another point guard, apparently, right? Because Lonzo Ball and Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White and Josh Giddey and Javon Carter, well, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. By the way, Bulls, how y'all feel about that 4-guard lineup y'all out there running? 4 point guards and Vucevic, who, by the way, Vucevic is still on the team. I don't understand what the hell the Chicago Bulls are doing. Like, sitting on their hands for so long, then you finally start giving stuff up. You get next to nothing for DeMar DeRozan, next to nothing for Alex Caruso, and next to nothing for Zach LaVine. You're acquiring like no good young players, no draft capital, no picks acquired, no firsts acquired for the. I feel for you. The thing, I'm so glad I'm a Lakers fan. Because here's the thing, right? I grew up always watching the Lakers because Kobe was my favorite player. Magic was my dad's favorite player, so he was a Lakers fan. So I grew up watching Lakers games, and I thought Kobe was the GOAT, right? If it wasn't for that, though, I would probably be a Bulls fan. With as many pairs of Jordans I own and collect and rock, and all the propaganda I saw growing up, and now Jordan to go this and this and that. Plus, I think the Bulls uniforms is dope. I like the color scheme and the logo and everything, and you know what I'm saying? I'd probably be a Bulls fan. I'm glad that I just get to watch them from afar and not really have to suffer through whatever the fuck they be having going on over there because But yeah, I the thing is, there's so much to talk about today. Each one of these things could really be its own whole video. I can make a whole video talking about the Kings, a whole video talking about the Bulls, a whole video talking about the Spurs or this trade in general. And I probably should have, but it just is what it is. Hey, at least I'm putting a video out at all, to be honest, because we had like 6-7 months where I didn't do that. So I'm just trying to, get into the swing of it while also maintaining my main grind, which y'all know is the Lotus Off the Court channel, or you may not know, but I do like gaming and anime and stuff like during my daytime or my main job or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, Spurs fleece, phenomenal trade, incredible pickup. Kings and Bulls do better. You know what I'm saying? Then moving on, we had Caleb Martin being traded to the Mavericks. That's cool, whatever. This is the next one I want to get into. The Milwaukee Bucks traded Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, and a pick swap to the Washington Wizards for Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and second-round draft compensation. I don't like this at all. Kyle Kuzma is just not good. I understand Chris Middleton is like aging. He's past his prime. The injuries, I get it. I don't blame them for wanting to move on from Chris Middleton. I just don't think Kyle Kuzma is an upgrade. He's having arguably maybe his worst season of his career, while also having suffered through his own fair share of injuries. On top of that, I think Kuzma as a basketball player, like mentally, is like pretty immature, and I think like a lot of the criticism that people will probably give toward Jordan Poole should actually be aimed toward him, where he's kind of like a bit of a shot chucker at times and doesn't take the smartest shots and kind of just like, I'm gonna do my own thing, and you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think I don't like the fit. I don't think it's really much of an upgrade or improves the team at all. I don't think this moves the needle like whatsoever. I just don't. I don't like it. I don't really know what the idea is behind this. I don't know the rhyme or the reason, but Kyle Kuzma in Milwaukee, I'm not really a fan. And apparently there was a trade that was in the works that was basically all but confirmed to send Kyle Kuzma to Dallas last season to be paired up with Kyrie and Luka, which I would have liked a little bit more, but it's still, you know what I mean? But Kuzma vetoed it. He didn't want to go to Dallas. I guess he likes Milwaukee more. I can't imagine why, or maybe they're just like, hey, bro, you got to get up out of here. And I don't blame the Wizards for wanting to move on, because as bad as they are, him not wanting to be any sort of veteran presence and frankly not being mature enough to be a proper vet for them anyway, I don't blame anyone for wanting him to get up out of there. And, it just, Yeah, this is this y'all big three. I'm sorry, Milwaukee. This is not. It's just not it, bro. It's just not it, bro. Shout out Damian Lillard, by the way. I see he's going to be in the 3-point contest again at All-Star this year. Let's see if he can three-peat. That'd be pretty cool. I'll be looking forward to it, I guess. Might be the only trophy Dame ever get to lift up, keep it a stack. Well, I guess they won the in-season tournament, right? But there are some other trades that happened these last few days, like Jaden Springer getting traded to the Houston Rockets. Ime Udoka probably like that pickup. I believe the Boston Celtics also ended up signing Torrey Craig from the buyout market. Pelicans traded Daniel Tice to the OKC Thunder, who I don't really know if they really need him. Chet is supposed to make his return. I think he actually plays today. I think Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein actually play together for the first time today as I'm recording this video. This video should also be going up the same day. They're going to be playing against the Spurs. But, you know, I guess there's nothing wrong with some backup size. They could always use size and rebounding on that team. Some of these I'm kind of like glossing over because some of them aren't as important. Now, this is a big one right here. Again, some of these things, like they should have been their own dedicated videos as this was all coming out. I'm just not that locked in. I'm sorry, it is what it is. But I do want to talk about this stuff. So the Miami Heat sent Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors for Andrew Wiggins, Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Anderson, and a protected first-round pick. I don't like this either. And the problem we have here is that the Golden State Warriors have just kept missing over and over and over again. The Golden State Warriors screwed up a long time ago. Okay, starting with like drafting James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody. And like there's a creator I recently got put onto that I was familiar with named Low, Legend of Winning. I'm sure if you consume a lot of basketball content on YouTube, you probably heard of him, right? And he hit the nail on the head. He was spitting bars, and I agree with everything he said because he was saying everything that I was thinking, right? Where you draft James Wiseman, who didn't pan out. I don't like using the word bust. I think it gets thrown out way too easily and too loosely. Well, he's been injured. You know, let's chalk it up to injury. Let's chalk it up to injuries and the Golden State Warriors' inability to develop young players and give them proper time, because you draft Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, who don't seem like bad players, but Jonathan Kuminga had to damn near request the trade just to get some playing time. And wouldn't you know it, once Steve Kerr added him to the lineup and actually started playing him some games, we saw, oh wow, Jonathan Kuminga is kind of like a halfway decent player. We might have had some here. Yeah, it turns out the big athletic wing that you drafted high in the lottery was a decent prospect. Who could have guessed? You know, I mean, clearly y'all saw something in him when you drafted him, but for whatever reason, just couldn't really crack the lineup. Which wasn't getting no PT, and then when he would, he'd be coming off the bench or whatever. And frankly, you needed something from someone because this team is so down in the dumps and so in the dirt that there's just no secondary scorer next to Steph Curry. I mean, y'all clawing and scratching, just trying to be in the play-in. And the closest thing you had on the roster to a secondary scorer is Kuminga, who is now injured. But it's like he had to fight tooth and nail just to get there. And I understand that, you know, players got to prove themselves and whatnot. But like, it ain't like y'all had any other options. Never mind the fact that also Moses Moody just don't get the development or the playing time that he deserves or probably should get either. And then on top of that, you also draft Brandon Podziemski, who didn't seem like a terrible prospect, but there were talks of like acquiring like a Larry Markkinen or like even Paul George, which just struck out on or whatever, declined, whatever the case may be. Paul George thought it was damn near a done deal at one point, ended up in Philadelphia, probably dodged the bullet with that one based on how he's looking right now in Philadelphia. But regardless, like Brandon Podziemski was like untouchable for Larry Markkinen. Now I understand Larry Markkinen's having a down year right now, but what he's providing and what he's doing and how he's impacting the game is a lot more than we can say about Moses Moody or Brandon Podziemski or Kuminga, since he's injured, who honestly hasn't been that great, but is like one of the few silver linings I guess you have. But then beyond all of that, right, going back to the trade, they've been swinging and missing, and then they got complacent, sat on their hands, and did absolutely fuck all for who knows how long, right? Well, I mean, you could calculate how long, but for far too long, and then they got desperate, extremely desperate. All over social media, you see that they were making calls everywhere. They tried to get Kevin Durant. They struck out on getting Paul George before. They were trying. There was a report that came out and said they were contacting about every star in the league. You know what I'm saying? Whether that was KD, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, whoever. They were trying to get anybody who was willing to listen or that would come to Golden State. Couldn't get nothing. Initially, Jimmy wasn't going to go to Golden State because they didn't want to extend him. So he didn't want to go there because he wanted somewhere that was going to give him that money. An insane contract, by the way, that we'll get to in just a moment. But he originally wasn't even going to agree to go there because they didn't want to extend him. Understandably so, because Jimmy Butler, also having a pretty down year this season, honestly having a worse season this year than Andrew Wiggins. Okay, I think right now Andrew Wiggins is a comparable player, and it's just, he's not worth the 2-year, $120 million contract that they gave him. Yeah, 2 years, $120 million, $60 million a year. That's more than they're paying Steph Curry, you know, franchise player, the best player of the team, the star, the one who brought them 4 championships, Finals MVP 2022, turned this little organization into something that nobody knew or cared about into like the most valuable franchise in the league. I'm saying nobody hyperbolic, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, there was millions of people who liked the Warriors, but it went from like a franchise that wasn't worth much compared to the rest of the league to the most valuable one. That's Steph Curry. He's making less than what they just gave Jimmy Butler. How that makes sense? 35 years old, by the way, turns 36 this year and is playing worse than Andrew Wiggins, the player that you traded in order to get him. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense. They got so desperate that they had no other option. No other team or player wanted to do business with them and send a star to them. They had no one to pair alongside Steph Curry. There's no true second option on the team. Like I said, the best thing that they had was Jonathan Kuminga, and he's hurt. And I still haven't heard about when he's expected to make a return or if he's returning this season. It's been so long now that I haven't heard anything that I don't even know. Maybe I'm just not tapped in enough, but I don't even like it. The spacing, where is it? You know what I mean? Jimmy don't shoot threes. It's low volume and like an average percentage at best. So they're losing shooting from Wiggins' standpoint. I think at this point in his career, Wiggins is also a better defender. He clamped up Jason Tatum in those finals, and maybe Jimmy can still lock in. And we all know he's a playoff riser, and Jimmy Butler historically has been a dog. Okay, but I just don't. Maybe he really will get his joy back. Okay, maybe he really will return to playoff Jimmy. But I think back to like that bubble run. That was 5 years ago. There's a big difference between a player at the age of 30 and the age of 35. A big difference. A big, huge difference. I just don't know. Okay, even just a couple of years ago, they still made it, and Jimmy played pretty solid. But he's only getting worse. He's not getting better. He's only getting older. And the thing is, as well, is that the personalities, him and Draymond Green, how long is that going to take before they start butting heads? They're two very dominant personalities, two very strong-minded individuals who don't back down, like talking that talk. Both really tough guy, kind of, you know what I'm saying? So like, it's how that's going to work out. Don't know. Wouldn't want to be in that locker room personally. That's just me. But hey, maybe they'll be professionals. Maybe all will be cool. Maybe they'll be best buddies. Who knows? I don't imagine it going well. And as we've seen time and time again in Jimmy's career, it always ends poorly. Didn't go well in Chicago. Didn't go well in Minnesota. Didn't go well in Philly. Ended poorly in Miami. Not that he hasn't seen success and competed at a high level, but in terms of how it goes, he always burns the bridge on the way out. And I'm not necessarily saying it's always his fault, but he plays a major role in it. It was definitely really ugly the way he just left Miami. I like it for Miami more than I like it for Golden State. I think this is a extremely desperate move by the Warriors that won't pan out. Doesn't really move the needle for them that much. Does provide them, I guess, a bona fide, solidified second option who may or may not still have that dog in him and could be that playoff riser. But y'all got to even make the playoffs in the first place. Because right now, you're not in it. You know what I mean? You're not even in the race for the playoffs, let alone a championship. And that's what the Golden State Warriors should be doing right now, is competing for a championship. You have Stephen Wardell Curry. It's championship or bust. And I just fear that Steph Curry is going to be playing pretty meaningless basketball for the remainder of his career, however long that is, because I just don't think the Golden State Warriors are capable of putting a good enough team around him to help him compete and contend for championships, even if he is still capable of doing that as an individual player. Does that mean that the Warriors just fizzle out and then he just quietly retires? Does he ultimately try to get his way out of Golden State? Who knows? But I think this is better for the Heat acquiring Wiggins than it is for the Warriors acquiring Jimmy Butler. I guess they get their wash their hands of him and maybe it works out, but I doubt it. And then as for Dennis Schroeder, he got flipped multiple times. He ended up going from Miami to Utah, I believe, and he ended up on the Pistons, which I think is interesting because Dennis Schroeder was vocal before in the past about wanting to be a starter. You ain't starting in Detroit because I don't think you're playing over Cade Cunningham, you know what I'm saying? And then even when it comes to like Tim Hardaway Jr., like Malik Beasley and some of the other guards they have around there, like you're probably coming off the bench behind them as well, because what they really need is the shooting. And I don't think Dennis Schroeder's a better shooter than either of those guys. So, you know, and then also Jaden Ivey, you know what I'm saying? Jaden Ivey's out right now, but if he was there, he would be starting. So yeah, hopefully he's content in that role. I doubt it. He's had some crazy quotes that have come out these last few days, talking about slavery, then getting passed around like a blunt, and then kind of felt disrespected by how the Golden State Warriors kind of just pieced him out, and then he had a low reply on Twitter. It is what it is. But I don't like the Jimmy fit in Golden State. I don't think it's going to pan out. I don't think the Warriors will be great. I don't see them as contenders. It is what it is. And then here we can see Shams reporting on the 2-year, $121 million extension with the franchise through 2026-27. Yeah, I just can't really imagine paying a 37, 38-year-old $60 million. Not unless you're LeBron James, who has shown that you're still combating father time and somehow beating him. Even though LeBron is past his prime, he's still obviously playing at an elite level. And it's just, I don't think Jimmy Butler will be doing that. But I'd love to be proven wrong, because I ain't like I dislike Jimmy or the Warriors. You know what I'm saying? I love basketball. So if you just play a high level basketball, I'm going to be a fan. I'm going to appreciate it. I just don't expect that to actually be the case. Also, shout out Lonzo Ball, by the way, getting a 2-year, $20 million contract. I honestly expected him to get dealt. I thought he'd be traded somewhere, maybe come off the bench for another team, but the Bulls extended him. Now, why? I couldn't really tell you. I think he's actually still a solid contributor, still playing good defense, providing some shooting, very, very good court vision, awareness, and everything like that. Obviously not as good as he was before the injuries and missing all that time, but I think he's still a solid role player. And I just feel like the Bulls have so many guards and so many young guards over there that they probably let him go somewhere. But I guess not. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded him coming back home. You know what I'm saying? Coming back to LA. I would take him as much as I would take Gabe Vincent or over Gabe Vincent. You know what I mean? That would have been cool, but it is what it is. Happy for him still being able to contribute, play in the league, get a solid contract. Shout out Lonzo Ball. And then this was another crazy one. The New Orleans Pelicans traded Brandon Ingram to the Toronto Raptors for Bruce Brown Jr., Kelly Olynyk, 1 first-round pick, and 1 second-rounder. It's funny because for whatever reason, over in Toronto, they seem to have fallen in love with this archetype of player where it's just like these big 6'9" wings. Normally, though, they can't shoot. Brandon Ingram can shoot. And, you know, I like this pickup for them. He somewhat fits the timeline, you know, with Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes, obviously, and Grady Dick. I don't really know like what the plan here is, and like they're still really bad, and they're, you know, obviously in the drag for flag sweepstakes and trying to get the #1 overall pick, which would be funny because if you get Cooper Flag, he is once again another big 6'9" wing whose shooting is not his specialty. I'm not saying that he can't shoot, but it's not really what he provides, you know, necessarily. And it's just funny. Now, will they get the #1 overall pick? Who knows? It's obviously still up in the air. It's a lottery. But yeah, it just I ain't mad at it. When it comes to the Pels, I don't really know what their plan is. It did feel like, you know, the writing was on the wall when it comes to Zion and BI. We knew that one of them was going to get moved. There's been a lot of chatter about Zion Williamson getting moved. There was rumblings and people suggested and saying like, hey, maybe he should go to Charlotte. Maybe Charlotte should take a chance on him and everything like that. I think Zion played at Duke. I think he's actually from South Carolina, if I'm not familiar, so it wouldn't be too far from home either. Whether or not it's a good or bad thing, who really knows? But yeah, this is one that kind of caught me by surprise because when I thought about potential landing spots for Brandon Ingram, Toronto is not a place that I would have expected or thought of. I would have thought maybe the Grizzlies would try to acquire him if anything, or, you know, just other teams that are more in contention status or have a more solidified like timeline, or, you know, kind of got a little bit more figured out, something like that. And I just, you know, I ain't mad at it. Shout out to Toronto. That's not where I would have expected Brandon Ingram to end up. And when it comes to Bruce Brown, I don't expect him to stay with New Orleans. I don't remember where he ended up going. I think, will he be on the buyout market? I don't remember. I'd have to look into that. But yeah, and then this is a big one right here. This was a big one right here. Again, Lakers fanboy, you know what I'm saying? Los Angeles Lakers traded Dalton Knecht, Cam Reddish, a 2031 unprotected first-round pick, and a 2030 pick swap to the Charlotte Hornets for center Mark Williams. Now, why did the Hornets make this trade? I don't really know, other than the fact that I guess they just felt like Mark Williams wasn't reliable because he's been a little bit injury prone thus far in his career. But when he has been on the floor, he's been great. And this is a player who I would not have even thought was available. As a Lakers fan, how do I feel? I like it. I like it a lot. Young center who's shown lots of flashes of what he's capable of, has had some great games so far this season, has honestly been dominant at times on the floor, and is more offensive minded than defensive minded, but at 7'2" I think he is, with a giant wingspan, can definitely protect the rim decently enough. Obviously, he's not going to be Anthony Davis, whether that's offensively or defensively, but how many players are? Next to none, right? But as far as like being that vertical threat, being somebody who can there set screens, the pick and roll with Luka Doncic and LeBron and even Austin Reeves, I think this is going to be great. He's young. He fits a timeline with like a Luka Doncic and an AR and everything. And, you know, it does really suck losing Dalton Knecht. because I liked him as a prospect. He's been good for us so far as a rookie. I was rooting for him, and I'm going to continue to root for him in Charlotte, although I'm praying for him because it's Charlotte. But I mean, he also provided a lot of bench scoring. He was basically our primary bench scorer, and so we lose that. And you know, our starting lineup going to be pretty solid because now we're going to have a starting lineup of Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, LeBron, Dorian Finney-Smith, and then Mark Williams. I've seen a lot of people saying Rui. I think Rui comes off the bench for us because he will then become our new primary scorer off the bench, that new sixth man for us, because we need Dorian Finney-Smith for the defense. Also, he's a knockdown shooter. I think you need that when you have LeBron and Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic on the court. Luka obviously is not a great defender. In fact, he's typically a pretty bad one. Hopefully he puts in more effort. I did think that last season he was a big step up for him defensively. He was playing the best defense I'd ever seen him play. If he can continue to do that, let alone improve on it, that would be at least passable, okay? Austin Reeves is a capable defender, but just not athletic enough to be the primary point of attack one. That's why you have Dorian Finney-Smith. And then Mark Williams holding it down as the anchor. Like, it could be okay. LeBron can still defend in spurts and little bursts. Obviously, he can't sit in the chair that way he used to in his prime. He's 40 years old. I don't expect him to, right? But this does help out a lot. But honestly, the defense, I think it's been like overblown by the media and people on socials and everything like that, where it's just like, oh, what are they going to do? Like, I don't know if y'all been watching lately. Our defense has been pretty damn good, even without Anthony Davis. Like, AD's not there, and we've been holding it down even when he was still on the team, but he was just out with injury. It's been pretty good. You know what I'm saying? But and we still got Dorian Finney-Smith. You got Mark Williams down. You still got Gabe Vincent. Cam Reddish was somebody who was a solid defender for us, was kind of falling out of the rotation. Wasn't really getting a whole lot of PT, but he was there. I understand we got rid of Max Christie and Anthony Davis. Max Christie was turning into a great two-way player for us, a really nice defensive 3-and-D wing or guard, and then AD, obviously one of the best defenders in the world. But we haven't looked bad defensively at all. We're not going to be top 5 in defense. I don't think that's going to happen, but solid enough, and the offense is going to be ridiculous. And I'm sure JJ's plan and what he's going to cook up is rotations where you're always going to have at least one of Austin Reeves, LeBron James, or Luka Doncic on the floor at all times, just to help with the scoring and the shot creation and the ball handling and everything like that. And you know, the guys are going to have around them during those minutes where like LeBron and AR is on the floor, or like LeBron and Luka's on or off the floor and everything like that. It's not going to be pretty, but also we're not supposed to be seriously contenders this year. You know, they're going to try, they're going to compete, they're going to do their best, they're going to be competitive, they will be making the playoffs. That's all said and done. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's without a shadow of a doubt. They're going to be a playoff team, and they won't be an easy out. Right now, I think the standings have us as the 5th seed, and I think the Rockets are the 4th seed. So we would play the Rockets in the first round, because I think Denver actually moved up to the 3rd seed, if I'm not mistaken. If things were to stay like that, and that is how it is, I don't think the Rockets want to see the Lakers in the playoffs. The Rockets are young, they're inexperienced, they don't want to see LeBron James and Luka Doncic in the first round. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like our chances. Then when you talk about the semifinals, the conference finals, and everything beyond that, who really knows how far this team could go? I wouldn't write them off, but I'm also not expecting a championship. I'm not really calling us a legitimate or serious contender. We're looking toward the future with having players like a young Luka Doncic, who's still a 25-year-old superstar in this league. Mark Williams, who's still pretty young, was only just drafted just a couple of years ago. And, Austin Reeves, he's kind of just like middle of the road. He's just average. I think Austin Reeves is like 27 right now. Let me go ahead and just check that real quick. How old is Austin Reeves? Austin Reeves is 26 actually. So he's still relatively young as well. In my head, he's a little bit older because I know he wasn't like a one and done player, but regardless, I guess he's only been, was it 4 years now? Yeah. So yeah, 4 years. But yeah, this team's not super old. You know what I mean? So we're going to be able, and as long as you have a player like Luka Doncic, you're going to be able to compete at a high level and start contending for years to come. And I think they're only going to continue to build pieces and put winning players around him. So I love this trade. I didn't see this coming. I think they also said that Rob Pelinka was making calls for like a Jalen Duren, which would have been a crazy pickup, and basically just a lot of centers that I don't even think were necessarily available. But I was hearing, as you guys were probably hearing, about Miles Turner, who I don't think was available, Walker Kessler. Who else? Who else was I hearing about? Drawing a blank right now. Mitchell Robinson would have been an interesting one from the Knicks. I know he's got his own injury issues and everything like that. Vucevic, of course, who also didn't get moved, by the way. I really thought he was going to end up on the Warriors. That fell through for whatever reason. I think they really could have used him, but it is what it is. But anyway, losing Don't Connect is unfortunate. I'm rooting for him wherever he goes. Laker for life in my heart. You know what I'm saying? Same thing goes for Max Christie, and of course Anthony Davis is that legend. Cam Reddish, great defender. That's about all I can say. Losing him does hurt the defense even a little bit more, but I think all in all things are going to be fine. And this is where we ended up trading that pick. So Lakers ain't got no picks for a while, but honestly, Luka's probably going to carry the team so well. And it's going to be such a good team that those picks ain't going to be worth a ton anyway. So not having possession of them, probably not the worst thing in the world, is what it is. I think this was a W trade for the Lakers. Don't really understand why the Hornets got rid of him other than maybe they just thought he was too injury prone and they wanted to move on from him. They traded Nick Richards already to Phoenix, and I guess they're starting Diabate, and Nurkic will be backing him up. I don't really know. It feels like the Hornets are starting a rebuild in the middle of their rebuild. Is there anyone else on the way out? Could they potentially deal LaMelo Ball at some point and start building around Brandon Miller? Who knows? I don't pretend to understand what's going on with the Hornets, but it is what it is, man. This was another cool one. The Raptors traded Davion Mitchell to the Heat. I think this is a great defensive-minded guard that the Heat will love. I think Eric Spoelstra will utilize him very well. I think that'll end up working out really well for them. And then they also got PJ Tucker, who was also getting passed around a lot. Oh, and then this one right here. The Atlanta Hawks traded for DeAndre Hunter to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Karis LeVert. The Cavs finally upgrade that position. They get a big wing who's a really great scorer. I think DeAndre Hunter's having a career year right now. Another player that I have on my fantasy team, so I'm acutely aware of how good of a year he's having. I would say that he was the front runner for sixth man of the year, and whether or not the Cavs are going to start him or bring him off the bench as their sixth man, I don't really know, but I think this is a great pickup for them. The Cavs were already a phenomenal team, the best team in the East so far this season, at least standings wise. Whether or not you want to say that they're actually a better team than Boston, I'm not here to debate that. Could go either way. They're at the top of the standings, right? Number 1 seed out East. And they just got even better. They just bolstered their roster even more, provided more scoring, whether that's off the bench, more size, and more consistency, at least this season, than what Karis LeVert typically provides, because Karis LeVert can be very up and down. And I guess you could say the same about DeAndre Hunter, but I would just say that so far this season, DeAndre Hunter has obviously been a lot better than Karis LeVert. So yeah, I mean, this is a great pickup for Cleveland. As far as the Hawks goes, they also ended up trading Bogey. They traded Bogdanovic. So are they officially like blowing it up for real? For real? I was waiting to see and hear Trae Young to Miami or Trae Young to the Orlando Magic. I thought we was about to hear that any moment. And I guess that could still happen in the offseason. So if Trae does get traded this summer, I won't be shocked, and you shouldn't be either. But yeah, I think the Hawks are finally like really like blowing it up for real. They very much like the Bulls have just been extremely mediocre ever since that Eastern Conference Finals run that they went on. That was very clearly a fluke. And I think Trae Young is a phenomenal player who's very underrated, one of the biggest snubs, if not the biggest snub in this year's All-Star game. But yeah, it just I don't know what their direction is, but it seems like they're finally starting over for real. They got Zachary Sachet, they got Dyson Daniels, and I think there was a decent fit, and I kind of liked what they had going on. And Onyeka Okongwu feels like he's finally coming into his own, has finally won that starting position over Clint Capella, which I was waiting to see if Clint Capella was going to get dealt. That's another player who I wouldn't have minded necessarily coming to the Lakers as well. When it came to like what centers we could potentially acquire, I was just thinking of like anybody who I thought would potentially be on the market. And Clint Capella is one that I wouldn't have been mad at. Lob threat, obviously a good rebounder, capable defender, not in his prime anymore, but you know, I wouldn't have been mad at it. But yeah, it's just Cavs get even better. Hawks look like they're actually ready to blow everything up and start from scratch, but we'll see, because I don't expect Trae Young to be there this summer. And then here was the Bogdan trade where the Clippers traded Terrence Mann. Remember when Terrence Mann was untouchable? Remember that? Remember when they came out and said Terrence Mann was untouchable? But yeah, the Clippers traded Terrence Mann and Bones Highland to the Hawks for Bogdan Bogdanovic and 3 second-round picks. So there's that. Oh, and then this one broke my ankles. The Memphis Grizzlies traded Marcus Smart and a 2025 first-round pick to the Washington Wizards in a multi-team trade that sends 2 second-round picks to Memphis. Sources tell ESPN Memphis creates roster flexibility with the move. And then apparently, a lot of teams were calling about Kevin Durant. And one of the teams that attempted to acquire Kevin Durant at the deadline was the Memphis Grizzlies. And I would have loved that, okay? I'm not a Grizzlies fan per se. I'm a Lakers fan, first and foremost, forever and always, okay? But one of the other teams that I love watching and rooting for is the Memphis Grizzlies, because my favorite active player, my favorite young player in the league right now is Ja Morant. Say what you will about him. He deserves some criticism for sure, for both on the court and off the court things, especially off the court things. We understand that. But the brother can ball. Phenomenal talent, superstar in this league, one of the most exciting young players to watch. I like the kid a lot. And pairing him up with Kevin Durant. The thing is, I don't know how they would have done that, because the only way you could possibly do this, like, you would have had to trade Jaren or Desmond Bane or something, right? And break up that big three. Is like, I on one hand, I don't want to see that, but then also, like, KD on the Grizzlies would have been sick. I don't know, but the Grizzlies have a phenomenal roster. They're currently the 2 seed out west, which is, I don't think is getting talked about enough. And Jaren Jackson being the best player on that team this season isn't getting talked about enough. I know he made an all-star selection or an all-star appearance, but yeah, the Grizzlies have been killing it, man. And that's without Ja being Ja this season. He's having a down year, in my opinion. Hasn't been scoring as much, hasn't been available that much. And they're still killing it because they have such a deep, talented team between, you know, John Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jake LaRavia, Santi Aldama, Scottie Pippen Jr., Luke Kennard, although they did end up trading Jake LaRavia and I believe Santi Aldama. I have to double check on the Santi one, but I do think Jake LaRavia did get traded. But yeah, they made some space and everything. I was like, are they about to actually try to trade for KD? Didn't go through. KD ended up staying in Phoenix. He said he didn't want to go anywhere except potentially Miami, but he didn't end up going to Miami either. But he was like, I ain't trying to go to Memphis. But it would have been cool. It would have been cool. The Los Angeles Clippers traded KPJ to the Milwaukee Bucks. Sure. Pacers traded James Wiseman to Toronto. Wiseman is still out right now with injury as far as I'm aware, so he's not really going to play anyway, is what it is. And the Wizards also ended up sending Marvin Bagley III to the Grizzlies as part of the deal. And Johnny Davis was also sent to Memphis. So, you know, it ended up being not really much. And honestly, I would have liked for Marcus Smart to just stay in Memphis if this is what it was going to turn into. But when there was a brief moment where I thought they were going to get Kevin Durant, I was like, wait a minute. I got really excited because I thought that would have been really cool to see, but it didn't end up going through. And then, yeah, man, insane, absolutely insane deadline. Mark Williams to the Lakers, Chris Middleton with Washington. Will he stay there? I really don't know. I expected like Chris Middleton, like Marcus Smart, to end up somewhere else and get flipped, or I don't really know what's going to end up happening with them. De'Aaron Fox with the Spurs already looks incredible. Bogdanovich on the Clips. Terrence Mann on the Hawks. DeAndre Hunter now with the Cavs. Zach LaVine in Sacramento. I hate that for him. Brandon Ingram in Toronto. 80 with the Mavs. I think the Mavs are actually going to be a pretty solid team. I know, obviously, losing Luka Doncic, it's incomprehensible. No excuses for it. I feel bad for Mavs fans. Not too bad because I'm a Lakers fan and I still can't believe it. It's unreal. I can't wait to see a Vegas debut on Monday. But just an absolutely insane deadline. I do think that the Mavericks are going to legitimately be a good team and will make the playoffs and still be competitive. But I just can't justify it, losing Luka Doncic. Dennis Schroeder with Detroit, Karis LeVert in Atlanta. Jonas Valanciunas got traded to the Kings. Jimmy Butler's now a Golden State Warrior. Luka with the Lakers. Kuzma with the Bucks. Andrew Wiggins, I think, is one of the better moves of this. Going to Miami, I think it's going to be really good for him and for them. Don't connect in Charlotte, and Marcus Smart with the Wizards. I think this is the craziest deadline ever. Honestly, these last few days have been absolutely insane. Obviously, a lot of the biggest moves didn't happen on actual deadline day itself, but I'm still including it as the trade deadline. Luka Doncic got traded, and that's just I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it. Obviously, there's a lot of things I like overlooked or like kind of glossed over, but I just wanted to get some video out, just talking about my thoughts, sharing some of my opinions and everything. If there's still anything that you want me to make a dedicated video talking about, or questions that you guys have, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I would still be willing to make some of these videos, even though I'm late to it. But I pushed myself to make this one at the very least, because I did want to. You can't not talk about this. You know what I mean? And I know people were asking me about it, like on my main channels and stuff. So, you know, on Twitter and in my Twitch chat and everything like that. So, yeah, man, it's been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy, unbelievable.